that soon, in the very near future, a great devotee will take his birth, and he will absorb my kirtan ras. With all my love, I am anxious for this to occur. So this is Lord Chaitanya's prediction that Narottama Das Thakur would appear. And then Lord Chaitanya explained to Lord Nityananda and the devotees that for now I shall deposit my intense love in the Padma River. So this is very mystical. So he explained that I'll deposit my love in this Padma River, and when Narottama comes here in the future, this Padma River will extend my love to him. So the next day, after the kirtan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to that Padma River, he entered into the Padma River, and what happened is the Padma River began to bubble up and rise over and overflow the banks, almost unable to contain this divine prema that Lord Chaitanya was storing in the river. Then Lord Chaitanya explained to Lord Nityananda that it would be his duty in the future to guide Narottama to this Padma River, where this divine treasure of love of God was being stored. So then what happened is later, it was about around the time of Lord Chaitanya's disappearance in 1534 that Narottama actually appeared. And his father was a very wealthy king. He raised his son as an honoured prince. And it was noted also that Narottama, as a young boy, he was very exemplary. Exemplary, it was an embodiment of all the auspicious godly qualities. He was an exemplary student who mastered all academic subjects. But his favourite pastime as a young boy was to sit by this elderly Brahmana who was daily recite the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Narottama would just absorb himself in hearing these incredible pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his eternal associates. And even at that young age, Narottama developed a desire to one day go and associate with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his divine associates. And of course, just hearing these stories, Narottama actually, he resolved to devote his life to the eternal principles of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And then one day after he became a teenager, Lord Nityananda appeared to him in a dream, telling him that tomorrow, as the sun rises, you should take your bath in the Padma River. At that time, you will receive Krishna Prema, love of God. So Narottama, he was pretty amazed by that dream. And when he woke up in the morning, he immediately thought, I've got to go to the Padma River, as Nityananda has instructed me. So he went down to the Padma River, and then as he went into that river, he felt these vital transformations. At that moment, he was standing in the river, experiencing all this, because the Padma River, Lord Chaitanya had stored his prema there in the Padma River, and suddenly when he went into the river, he was experiencing that prema. And then all of a sudden, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just appeared before him and embraced him. And as their bodies merged in that embrace, Narottama's natural dark complexion turned to molten gold, the same as Lord Chaitanya's. Suddenly it was molten gold. And then suddenly Lord Chaitanya disappeared from Nara's side. But Nara, he didn't go home after that. He his parents were worried about him. Where's Nara? Where is he? And they sent out a search party to try and find him. And they found him. He was experiencing all this prema, this transcendental transformation in his consciousness. He was experiencing this love of God. All these ecstatic symptoms were erupting in his body, in his personality. And he was just dancing and madly by the Padma River and he was just experiencing all these ecstatic symptoms. He was just appearing like a madman. So they found him and they brought him home. And at first, his parents, they didn't recognize him. Because before he had a dark complexion, like an Indian complexion. But suddenly he was molten gold colour. And not only that, but he was just continuously crying tears of love, experiencing ecstatic symptoms of love of God. And of course, his dear mother, she didn't know what to do. She confronted him and she said, "Dear Nara, what's happened to you? Why are you weeping? How can we help you? What's wrong?" Natural mother experiencing all the emotions of a mother, were concerned for the son. And Narottama explained to her, "Dear mother, this morning when I went to bathe in the Padma River, this golden form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead entered into my heart. Now I am feeling so much love in my heart. I'm feeling so much separation from him." And the king, of course, the father, he was very distressed. Because, this son, Narottama, he was their only son. He was the heir to the throne. He was being trained up as a prince to take over the kingdom. So his father was worried that Nara might run away and become a sadhu. Therefore he had the best guards watch over Narottama day and night. And Nara was living in the palace like a prisoner. Then one night, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to Narottama in a dream and he instructed him, "Narottama, it's time to leave your family and go to Vrindavan. Once there, take initiation from Lokanath Swami." So during this time, while Narottama was living in the palace, his love for the Lord was just so intense. He couldn't sleep. He was just constantly just chanting and just remembering the Lord and weeping in divine separation from the Lord. But after a few months, he, taking up the advice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he managed to escape from the palace. And he ran through the forests, avoiding the main road so they wouldn't try and catch up with him. And he headed for Vrindavan, and it was a very long and difficult journey on foot across India. Just imagine. And because he was just, he wasn't a really, he was just like a pampered prince. He wasn't used to such rigorous activity. And after 3 days due to hunger and exhaustion, he just collapsed and just lost consciousness. And he was just lying there. And then that day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, disguised as a Brahmana, he came. He brought him back to consciousness and he gave him this special milk to drink, which just brought him back to life, gave him his energy. And then in a dream, Rupa Goswami that night appeared to him and they encouraged him. Don't give up. Keep going to Vrindavan. And then he kept going. And finally he reached Mathura, and he was talking to an elderly Brahmana there who informed him about the sad news. That actually all these people he was so anxious and for so many years was desiring to go and meet and associate with, had actually recently departed from the spiritual, gone back to the spiritual world. Rupa and Sanat and Raghunath Bhatta and many others have gone to join Lord Chaitanya's eternal Leela in the spiritual world. And this is why, he's written this song. He who has brought the treasure of divine love, who is filled with compassion and mercy, where is such a person as Advaita Acharya gone? Where is my Sarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the saviour of the fallen? Where is my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? Where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to attain their association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all his devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama simply weeps. So this song, it brings to life this pastime, where he's trying to get to Vrindavan to associate with all these great devotees who he'd heard so much about. But he was just a little late, because they'd already left this world. And as the Brahmana was telling him this, he just began to cry. He travelled so far, and he had such an intense desire to meet them, that he suddenly he was crying, and then he just fainted. And then at that time, something very mystical happened. All those personalities appeared to him in a spiritual vision, and they were encouraging him. Go to Vrindavan. Don't stop here. Keep going. Get to Vrindavan and take shelter of Jiva Goswami. Because Jiva Goswami, he was the youngest of all the Goswamis, and he was still living there in Vrindavan. So when he finally arrived in Vrindavan, he came to the Govinda Temple. And he went in there and he just fell flat before the deities, and he was exhibiting all these ecstatic symptoms of love of God. And soon some great devotees appeared there. That the word went out that that Nara had arrived. So Lokanath and Jiva Goswami, many other great Vaishnavas, they came and greeted him. Actually, Lord Chaitanya had actually revealed to Lokanath Goswami of Nara's arrival in a dream. And so Lokanath, he knew he was coming. So he met up with Lokanath. Lokanath met up with Narottama, and they went and they sat together, they talked together, they ate together. And then Narottama began explaining his entire story. How he met Lord Chaitanya, he had the dream of Nityananda, who instructed him to go to the river, the Padma, and he was embraced by Lord Chaitanya, and then Lord Chaitanya would appear to him in a dream and told him he should go to Vrindavan. So Narottama at that time, he reminded Lokanath of Lord Chaitanya's desire that Lokanath accept Narottama as his disciple. Yet out of genuine humility, Lokanath, because Swami, he declined to accept him. And sometimes we see that. Some of these great devotees, they're so humble, and so they feel themselves so insignificant and unqualified that they don't. When someone approaches them for initiation, they're not inclined. They don't feel that they're qualified. Then for 2 full years, Narottama, he just served Lokanath Goswami, listening to his discourses, He was chanting very enthusiastically, performing menial services, but still no initiation. Then Lord Chaitanya appeared to Lokanath Swami in a dream and chastised him. And he said to him, "Did I not tell you to initiate Narottama? Do not continue this false humility." So Lokanath Swami, he realized, it's time to initiate Narottama. So the next day Lokanath performed the initiation ceremony, gave Narottama Diksha and Brahman initiation, and gave him some instructions. One of those instructions was to always meditate on the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, keep a very strong sadhana, be greedy for attaining the lotus feet of Krishna, and be careful not to commit offences, especially never offend a Vaishnava. So he gave him these simple instructions. And he concluded the initiation by asking Narottama to take shelter, to take a shiksha shelter of Jiva Goswami for further instructions, because Jiva Goswami, he was the most powerful acharya at that particular time, and he was the most incredibly learned and influential personality. So Narottama, he fell flat before his spiritual master, and it is said, his heart was just erupting with gratitude and love. Then all the Vaishnavas present, they showered their blessings on Narottama. Actually, during that initiation, and this happens, amongst very exalted personalities, Lokanath Goswami revealed to Narottama his eternal spiritual form as Vilas Manjari. These Manjaris are the very young and dear maidservants of Radha and Krishna, and they have very specialized services in the spiritual world, serving the divine couple. And what happened is actually, it is said that one night Radharani appeared to Lokanath, to Narottama in a dream, and instructed him to assist Champakalata. She's one of the principal 8 gopis. These principal 8 gopis, they're like Radharani's, they're actually direct expansions of Srimati Radharani, and they're the eternal associates and dearest friends of Srimati Radharani, and they have specialized services or duties in relation to serving the divine couple, Radha and Krishna. And under them they have many assistants who help with that service. So Chambakalata, one of her services was cook beautiful milk sweets for the divine couple. The rasagullas and the rasmalais and the sandesh and the burfi and all the sweets. So Narottama was asked to take up his eternal position of assisting Champakalata, making these beautiful milk sweets for Radha and Krishna. And it is said that sometimes Narottama would go into these elaborate meditative trances, where he was no longer actually here in this world. He'd actually entered into the spiritual world, visualizing himself boiling the milk in his eternal form as Vilas Manjari. And it may just seem a little bit sentimental or a bit imaginary, but actually it is said that sometimes the milk would start boiling over, and he'd try and stop the milk with his hands, boiling over, and he'd burn his hands. And he'd be walking around Vrindavan with his hands bandaged up from the burns. And because no one really knew except a few special personalities could understand, what was going on. So, following his guru's order, he went and begged Jiva Goswami to accept him as his student. Jiva Goswami, he embraced Narottama. He said, Narottama, you are a manifestation of Krishna's love, of Lord Chaitanya's love, and with this love, you will flood the entire world. So he accepted him as his student. Jiva Goswami had a group of special devotees as his students, and there was Shamananda and there was some others. I can't remember who they all were, but then one day what happened is Jiva Goswami, he loudly announced to an assembly of Vaishnavas that it was Lord Chaitanya's desire that we write and distribute books far and wide. This is where it all started, book distribution. Now we have many manuscripts written by the Goswamis of Vrindavan. The time has come to go out and distribute them. They said Jiva Goswami was the original Sankirtan leader for the book distribution. So after this saying, he just looked around at the assembly of devotees who had gathered, and then his eyes just fell on his three best students, Narottama, Srinivas and Shamananda. And then he asked them to accept the mission on behalf of the all three, Srinivas stood up and he said, we are deeply honoured that you have chosen us to take up this mission of distributing books of the Goswamis. So soon after getting the blessings of all the deities of Vrindavan and the Vaishnavas of Vrindavan, they packed up the books into these trunks, they loaded up the carts and they sent on a mission to Bengal and surrounding areas where Lord Chaitanya had previously performed his pastimes. And after some time, news was spreading of Narottama's amazing qualities, his incredible devotion and wisdom, and many people came to take shelter of him. Actually, people from all over India, devotees, famous writers and poets and philosophers and devotees and Brahmins, they all came to take shelter of Narottama. And then one day, Narottama received a letter from his guru, Lokanath Goswami. In that letter, he emphasized the importance of engaging people in deity worship, and how Narottama should establish a temple in Cheturi, which is in West Bengal. So the king of Cheturi, who was a disciple of Narottama, he agreed to cover all the expenses. So Narottama chose a special auspicious day of Gopurnim, the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya, for this huge installation ceremony. And they had, there was many, they had some different sets of deities there that were meant to go to different temples. But at this particular time, they built this huge temple. Then they built this large storehouse to store all the food, elaborately designed kirtan hall for the big kirtans. Then residential areas for all the devotees to come and stay, and bathing ponds and beautiful parks and gardens. They create this incredible, beautiful whole scene. It was all basically made for this huge festival. And then they sent messages out about the festival, the installation, and soon thousands of devotees started gathering for this festival. And there was first and second generation of the associates of Lord Chaitanya, so many kings and famous Vaishnavas and scholars and landholders and brahmanas and priests. They all came from near and far away. So many kirtan performers. So when they all gathered and the festival began, Narottama unveiled 5 sets of Radha and Krishna deities. And after this elaborate bathing ceremony, Krishna guitar recitations, classical dances and dramas and kirtans and this huge feast, thousands and thousands of people. Finally, they all went to the large kirtan hall for the big Maha Kirtan. And Narottama, actually, he began leading the kirtan. Narottama, he was a very special kirtan leader. It is said that he was using these most sophisticated rhythms and melodies and tunes, and everyone sang and danced in ecstasy, tears flowing from their eyes in joy. And Narottama had this special it was said, that the kirtan leader has the potence to elevate everyone in the kirtan. Because Narottama was such an exalted personality, everyone in the kirtan was experiencing this incredible intensity. And the kirtan, actually, it evolved through certain stages. It started off very, very slow, using the different, melodies and rhythms, and certain emotions were brought out in the participants of the kirtan. And then gradually, very slowly, he started building it up, slowly. And then, finally, when the kirtan it is said, when it reached its pinnacle, and everyone was like, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, and everyone was dancing. And then it is said that suddenly, all of a sudden, like a flash of lightning, Lord Chaitanya suddenly appeared in the middle of the kirtan, dancing. Imagine that. Imagine here at New Govardhana, if we're having an ecstatic kirtan, suddenly Lord Chaitanya appeared in the middle, dancing with us. So this was just like, he just appeared in the middle of the kirtan. He was dancing and chanting ecstatically in the middle of the kirtan. And, Narottama, he was there leading the kirtan. He reached out and he touched Lord Chaitanya's hand. And it is said when he did that, shivers of ecstasy ran through Narottama's entire body. And tears just shot from his eyes, and his hair stood on end. And he touched Lord Chaitanya's hand. So this wasn't just a dream or a vision. Lord Chaitanya was actually there, chanting and dancing in the kirtan. And then all of a sudden, not only Lord Chaitanya, but suddenly Nityananda appeared, Haridas Thakur, Rupa and Sanatan, Swarup Damodar, many others also came, and they were all dancing in the kirtan. Everyone was just simply just carried away in ecstasy. They chanted and danced into the night. I mean, all these personalities who had disappeared from the world years before were suddenly before them there in the kirtan. So they chanted and danced and chanted and danced into the night. And, this is an amazing festival. So Narottama, he became, in due course of time, he became the most famous Vaishnava guru in Bengal. his intense purity, his beautiful writings, amazing kirtans, incredible lectures brought, many, many souls to take initiation from him. He had a huge following. And it is said, that his mood was always being viewed, he had a certain mood, but it was being in the mood of like a mixed state of bliss or happiness and this kind of sadness, this divine separation due to this intense feelings of separation from Radha and Krishna. And we see that actually many of the acharyas, who come from the spiritual world, they have this special relationship with Srimati Radharani and Krishna and their eternal service there in the spiritual world. And Krishna, out of mercy and kindness to us, he sends these personalities from the spiritual world, from his inner circle of devotees. He sends them down here to the material world to inspire us to take up the mission of Lord Chaitanya and take up the process of devotional service and go back to Godhead. So, they've left the spiritual world, but they're always feeling this separation from Krishna. Actually, they asked Prabhupada once, should we also feel this separation from Krishna? Because it seems like it's the mood of these very exalted devotees that they had this, this divine separation. It's said to be the supreme devotional condition, which is awarded by Krishna upon those devotees who have the highest qualifications. So they asked Prabhupada, should we also feel that separation? We're not really that qualified. Prabhupada said, yes. He said you should be thinking that Krishna is so far away in the spiritual world. And we're down here on this planet Earth, trillions of light years away. But we want to be with him. We want to be in the spiritual world, in our eternal home, serving the divine couple and associating with his eternal associates. Therefore we should feel separation from Krishna. And we should, and in that mood we should intensely perform our sadhana and try and qualify ourselves so we can achieve that goal. So Narottama, he was feeling, actually his intensity of feelings of separation became almost so, it was unbearable. He couldn't even tolerate it. The intensity of love and separation became so intense that he desired that, I've just got to leave this world and go back to the spiritual world. I can't stay here any longer. I've got to go back and be with with Radha and Krishna. So he requested his intimate followers to come down to the Ganges. He said, he called all these intimate followers and disciples to just follow me down to the Ganges. So then when they got there, he offered his obeisance to the Mother Ganga, and then he entered the water and he asked his servant to massage his body while he was in the water. Then suddenly, there was a big kirtan going on, and as they chanted, they realized that slowly Narottama's body was just melting. It just melted into this milky-like substance and mixed with the water of the Ganges. He just left his body, went back to the spiritual world to resume his eternal pastimes as Vilas Manjari, making the beautiful milk sweets, assisting Champakalata, making the beautiful milk sweets for Radha and Krishna. Jai Shri Narottama Das Thakur ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Does anyone have any questions? Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.